like that.
There you go.
And we are on. Hello and welcome to the Feed to Succeed podcast. I'm Betsy Youngren, registered dietitian and pediatric nutrition expert, and I'm here today with my co-host.
Hi everyone, it's Jen Caracosta, Family and Consumer Sciences teacher and culinary coach.
Hi Jen.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what's going on?
Just busy. A lot going on, and I'm sick of talking about the pandemic, but
Yeah.
it's what we gotta talk about so everyone does what they're supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
you?
I have been very busy creating content for the new website.
Exciting.
Yes.
I'm
And
excited.
if you're listening to this podcast, it is up by now.
Right.
So the exciting thing about the new website, our old website was functional for our business and for clients to find out who we were and get information about making an appointment and all that. But since that was created, which was a long time ago, it was 2013, 7 years have passed, we've started our blog, we've started the Ask Amanda column, we've started the podcast, and we've curated all this material.
A lot of content.
A lot of content.
Yeah.
And it was on the old website, but not well organized and hard to find. So the new website's super exciting. It has all this information organized. So if you are a parent and you need some information on your toddler, you can search toddler nutrition and it'll show you all the podcasts you can listen to, all the columns you can read, all the blog posts we've published over the past 7 years. That might answer some of your concerns. So that's one piece of it. I'm very excited. You could search by age of child. You can search by diagnosis.
Wow.
It's very exciting.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm excited to see it.
Yep. And the other thing that's very cool that is not fully functional yet, but we have big plans for it, is we have a community page where you can join our community. It's simple and it's free. You just provide your email address to be on our email list, so when we send out new information, you are aware of it.
Sure.
And on there, I've put a lot of my patient handout materials that I've developed over the years. And at one point, when I first started out, I felt like very protective of them. I didn't want to share them
Right.
because it's like my intellectual capital. I created these. My husband's a teacher. He helped me create the layout and the format so they would be nice and usable. And I really felt kind of selfish about them. And then I realized, over the years, it's really not a worthwhile point of view and attitude to have about it. So now on the new community page, there are handouts. You can just download and print. They're free.
Wow.
There's recipes for different things, like, for example, macaroni and cheese with ham and broccoli using a whole grain macaroni. So it's like good, high in fiber, high in calories. So depending what your child's nutritional needs are, you can search recipes that might fit that bill.
Great.
And then the third piece of that community page is in September, we're going to launch our first course.
Exciting.
Yeah. So, and the purpose of that is that people, not everybody has insurance coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody can pay out of pocket for nutrition services, but there are a lot of people who would like to have more information on making some dietary adjustments based on their needs. So we are developing some content where you could choose to, you can watch all the videos about what it's about, and if you decide you want to try something and you need some guidance, you can actually just purchase a course, watch it on your own time, do whatever you want, come back to it multiple times for refreshers as you need to. So that, if you're listening, please go check it out, feedtosucceed.com. Very exciting. Please tell people, family and friends, about this wonderful website I'm very excited about.
That's great. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
You know, and just even thinking back to where your website started and where it is now, making an interactive website that's user-friendly is certainly something that you want to do because it's going to attract more people to the site, and then word of mouth is always a really good thing, and then
Yeah.
where it comes up in a search on search engines and things like that. But then also just when you made the comment about you had created these handouts and that you felt like they were yours and you wanted to kind of protect them, I can equate that to making a lesson plan.
Mm-hmm.
And worked really hard on this and I'm just gonna hand this out. But then you think about how is that going to help the greater good?
Yeah.
So then did you reach more people that way by getting your information out? And then you never know where that could lead.
Right.
So I'm excited for that, and I've gone to your website to look for information and things like that. So
Thank you for doing that.
yeah, of course, I'm excited to see the new website. So and I even thinking about the way it's organized with some of the, you know, in season 2 when we talked about different medical dietary issues, to think that if you typed that in and that podcast came up or any of that information, you know, that's really cool to think that that's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thank you. I'm very excited.
very good.
I'm gonna make one more comment about it and then I'll move on. So my last website, I hired somebody to rebuild it, and it was good, and he was nice, and he was a nice guy. He did a good job. His wife was a pediatrician. He had some understanding. This website, I was way more involved in terms of choosing the images, choosing the pictures. What did I really want it to reflect? And what I have put into it with the help of the professional people who I've hired to help me really reflects my heart.
That's great.
And so the first time I saw this beautiful banner with this beautiful little girl with Down syndrome, I cried, and I said, that is what I'm about.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other thing too. So we were able to really kind of express ourselves and our mission and who we are and what we want to do more because we had so much more input in creating all of this.
That's great. And I saw the banner, and that struck me right away as well, because your patients represent everyone, and so how can families see themselves in your company?
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Thank you.
Good. So it will be, hopefully, it will be a week into being live when this podcast released. So
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks.
All right. A lot of undertakings. So we both, when we sat down to talk today, we were both like, I'm really exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
What should we talk about today? And I think we've said this enough. We don't write a script. Not that we make things up on the fly, because I don't think we're not making anything up, but when we
No.
just think about a topic, we want it to be
We
more
wanna talk about it.
conversational and not just reading a bunch of notes off a screen.
Right.
So we were talking about, obviously, COVID being still a hot topic of conversation, and the United States doesn't have it under control. It's just, that's a
Certainly
fact.
does not.
That's not even just an opinion.
Mm.
But one thing that I've read lots of articles about, and then it kind of ties into what we want to talk about today, are people taking up new hobbies during COVID while they're home, and one of them was gardening.
Yeah.
Everyone was going to plant a garden.
Yeah.
And Betsy and I talked, I think, in a couple different seasons about our gardens, but we thought we would talk a little bit about that today.
Mm-hmm.
Gardening. What did you plant out there? And then even getting things ready to plant for a fall harvest as well, because it's not too late.
No.
Even in the Midwest, it's not too.
That's
it's
right.
not too late.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what we got going.
What's in your garden?
What's in mine?
Yeah.
So in mine right now are tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers. I planted more. They didn't come up. It didn't go well. I planted pumpkins. I'd saved pumpkin seeds and froze them and then let them defrost and planted them. Nothing came out of those. And then as the cucumbers were starting to grow, they were overshadowing everything else. So I didn't lay it out very well, but where my garden is, the lighting, the sunlight's fine for a while, and then it gets kind of shadowy and stuff like that. So the cucumbers are totally out of control, which is great. The tomatoes, I've got a bunch that are just as green as green can be, and so I'm letting them sit for a little bit longer, but I might pull them and let them ripen in a windowsill.
Have you had any red ones yet?
None.
Oh.
None. But I mean, like, humongous green tomatoes, and my kids are like, well, maybe they're supposed to be green. And I said, no, it's not what we did. So I'm waiting on that. And then peppers, I think we've had 3 bell peppers at this point, and you can totally just tell the difference from what you get in the grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
And my kids, again, are like, wait, Mom, there's 6 cucumbers.
Oh, that's cute.
And so they get them out, and then what we always do, I mean, I think we're going through 1, if not 2 a day. So it's good.
That's great.
How about you?
So I have 2 4x8 garden beds. They're cedar planks and filled, so they're slightly raised. And I plant stuff in them every year, but usually by July, I'm busy at work. Summer's my busiest time. And things are getting out of control and I kind of neglect it.
Okay.
But this year is the most I've ever stuck with caring for it still to this point, keeping the weeds at bay and so forth. So I firstly want to say that this year is the nicest garden I've grown ever. However, and it's very beautiful and a lot of things are doing well, but the cucumbers are dying and I'm really frustrated because I love them, and normally at this time of year, my tomatoes are starting to ripen and my cucumbers are coming faster than I can use them. And one thing that I really love to make and eat daily is a Horia-tiki salad.
Oh, talk about that.
So when I was growing up, my parents would frequently serve this Greek salad, their version of a Greek salad, in memory of this trip they took when they were newlyweds to Greece. And the way that the salads were served there was without lettuce.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I grew up eating that and enjoying that and learning to like those flavors. And then 2 years after David and I were married, we went to Greece and traveled around, and I was very interested in how many different versions of this Horia-tiki, which is a villager's salad, existed. I always thought that it was just this one way my mom did it.
Okay.
But there, it's local to what is available. So some people are using cherry tomatoes, some people are using big fat red tomatoes. Sometimes they put peppers in it. It was kind of the same idea all the time. Fresh chopped garden vegetables, really good feta cheese and olives, and onion, oregano is kind of the basis of that. So anyway, I look forward to that every summer, and I have sought out where I can get the feta that I like.
Was that what you had at your house last week, 2 weeks ago?
I think that was a different one.
Okay.
But the best feta, for those of you who want my opinion, is made with sheep's milk. It's a milder flavor than your standard cow's milk feta that you get in the United States, and it's really creamy and really soft. So I do go to special markets looking for this French feta, but I discovered last time I was at Costco that they had an Israeli feta made from sheep's milk. I bought that and tried it, and it is also wonderful. So I decided it's not the French that makes the feta good, it's the sheep's milk.
Okay. All right. There you go.
And so what I'm saying is, I'm sad that I don't have cucumbers for my daily salad. I have the feta and the olives and the tomatoes and the onions sitting in my house waiting for these cucumbers to ripen. And I'm getting like one a week, and they're funky shaped and a little bitter.
Okay. So you know that you can come in my backyard anytime and grab a cucumber, because we have a lot.
Thank you.
And mine, the varietal I thought that we planted is different, and this is where I probably should take a picture or do something of the cucumber plants, but they almost look, my cucumbers almost look like what you would see in like the big dill pickle jar at the deli,
Oh, yeah.
but they're delicious.
Mhm.
Because I've had other pickles where clearly you could tell they were pickling pickles, and they tasted bitter and terrible.
Mm.
So when I bit into this, I was like, oh man, I hope that's not what it is. And these are so delicious.
Do you know
Really
what
good.
variety it is?
That's a great question. Like I said, I should pay more attention or write it down, but they're so good. And one plant is dying as well. We talked about, you said your cucumber plants, and from what I heard from my dad, who is a big gardener, said that it's from all the rain that we had in May, that the soil was just so saturated, but I don't know. But the other plant's doing wonderfully and like has taken over everything. But feel free, because I don't want any of those other ingredients you have to go to waste.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
And we did have it at your house the one night, and it was so good. That feta cheese was delicious.
It
So-
probably was maybe the French that night, now that I'm saying that I went and bought the Israeli after that.
Okay.
But yes, thank you.
Yeah, so, and, you know, you have 2 beautiful garden beds, and we even talked about next summer, maybe me building some raised beds. I would like that, and I would like to do more of it, and I know, even last year, and I say this long ago, I feel like the beginning of last school year was like 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that I ever talked about this, because this is another way that you can garden. I had 3 hydroponic towers in my classroom. Did I ever talk about those?
Briefly,
I don't.
because
Okay.
I don't remember if we talked about it in my backyard or on the podcast.
Okay, I don't remember either, but I had asked for a hydroponic tower garden for my department chair, who is excessive, so he bought me 3 of them. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so we ordered them from a company, and the rep came out and set them all up for us, and it's a process. So there's like 20 gallons of water in the bottom, and you have to test the pH weekly, and then it comes up through the middle and then sprinkles down. And I think there's 27 pods that you can be growing out of, and LED lights. So you start the seeds, you put them in this rock wool, start the seeds, you cover it and put out for 24 hours, like in a dark place. We put it like in a closet, and then you take it out, and the LED lights are basically on for like 18 hours a day as you're getting your seedlings going.
Wow.
And my coworker was very quick to tell me that she does not do well with plants. So this was like my thing. I was like, okay. And I had the rock wool, and I had it all labeled and things like that. And you put a little bit of water in the bottom of the pan every couple days. And I would always joke around, because I'd get up on, we had them up on a high shelf, and so I'd get on a step stool, and I would talk to them and say good morning, and you know, all the stuff. And the kids thought I was nuts, which is fine. But they did really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
So then we planted all 3 of them in the rock wool, all 3 gardens. And I had them, there was one in our architecture room, there was one in our biotech engineering room, and then one in my culinary lab. That was the first part. But like, this was a project, because I was going to check the water level, test the pH, things like that. So then I was like, I'm taking all these gardens and I'm putting them all back in my culinary lab. So I had like 1 in 3 corners of like different parts of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids just loved watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had herbs all in one, I had lettuces in another, and then I had probably a combination of both, maybe in the third. And they're not great per se for big vegetables. I guess you can take them and plant them outside at some point, maybe starters. But we knew that there was really no place that we would be able to do that. But the coolest thing was, like, we were doing a lab and we needed parsley, and we just clipped it off the garden.
That is cool.
You know, it was really neat. We had this lemon lavender that we grew. It smelled so delicious, and the kids just loved it. So that was my other gardening thing that actually went quite well. So my outdoor garden right now is fine, but the indoor I was pretty excited about. So
That's exciting.
yeah.
So one of the patients I saw this past week is a really picky eater, and I've been periodically meeting with them, trying to get his weight up as part of this, but also trying to expand the variety of foods that they eat,
Mm-hmm.
that this person eats. And they did plant a garden as well. And so it's very interesting. When we first met, the negotiation was, we're going to take a bite of a vegetable every day. And that was as far as we could go, and it was kind of hit or miss when that part of the plan worked.
Okay. And how old is this patient?
12.
12. Okay. So certainly old enough to know what they're eating and things like that. Okay.
So they did plant a garden, and as you're saying, we've all been around home more with sheltering in place this year, and so they planted tomatoes, and the child apparently had eaten them as a younger child, but had given them up and had become more and more restrictive with the picky eating. But between planting the garden, taking care of them, watching them grow, and then the interaction I've had with encouraging, we need to find some vegetables, something, because of this is a healthy food for your body, and this is why, started getting a little more interested in that. And when I talked to them last week, he is eating cherry tomatoes every day.
Great.
And I always tell families that that's a really good way for your picky eaters who don't like fruits and vegetables to get them a little bit more open and interested in those foods.
Sure. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but going back to your hydroponic gardens,
Yeah.
and I have to say this because I'm kind of in a bad place mentally about COVID right now for a variety of different reasons, kind of waxes and wanes. But the day that the weekend that school shut down,
Yeah.
and you had to go take those gardens apart, I was like heartbroken.
Oh.
I remember being like, Jen, can't we save something? Can you bring it home? Let's just stick it in the ground in our garden. I know it's early, but maybe it'll live.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, that day is so vivid. So it was Thursday, March 12th, and Friday, March 13th, school was canceled.
Yeah.
So Thursday that afternoon. And not only did our classes make apple crumb pies, there were 18 apple crumb pies in the classroom that essentially, like, any teacher I saw walking in the hallway, I was like, take a bite, take a bite. I mean, like,
I think we got one of those.
yeah, you totally did. I got one. I mean, we sent them home with anyone that was like walking that way. I had to go in the next day and take the gardens apart because I knew that if they weren't tended to, they were going to be disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not want to leave that for our maintenance staff and our custodial staff who do a phenomenal job in our classes to help us out, but I was like, that's extra. That is my job. So I went there and took the gardens apart, and I did bring some things home. I harvested what I could, brought things home in bags, like walked around, and whoever was there, maybe I had like a bag of lettuce for them. Some things I had to throw away because they were not, it was just not possible that we could save them. It was heartbreaking. I felt bad. I just felt like I was not doing the right thing, but I also knew that the unknowns were so great. I wasn't like, okay, you know what, I think I can leave this for 3 weeks, like, clearly. And I remember talking to one of our head maintenance guys, and he was like, what's up with those gardens? And I said, they're taken apart. He's like, thank God. Just because they did. They knew that they had a big task under them right now to go clean the classrooms and things like that. So, yeah, they're in the ruins. I haven't been back. So.
Yeah.
You know, I can't wait to get them going again. And we've talked about getting the students more involved with the planting and taking care of them and filling the tanks. I mean, it takes a while to fill the 20-gallon tank for water, and then students are laughing at me because I'm like testing the pH, the levels, and things like that. But it was a good learning experience for me as well. So I think I'm actually next year, when I get my act together, better for putting my own garden in at home. Now I know how I'm going to get my seedlings started.
Oh, good idea.
You know, and do it the way that we did it for the hydroponic garden, so that I think you can plant the rock wool. So just get those started that way.
What is the rock wool?
It's a great question. I'd have to look up what the composition of it is. It feels like spongy in your hands, but it's clearly something that would hold roots.
Okay.
Yeah, but even the root system through it was fascinating. Like, you'd have to pull the pods out every couple weeks and like clip the roots. And
why?
Because they would get tangled in the water holes. So the water comes up through a pump that comes up through the middle of the garden and then sprinkles down through the top, and there's all these holes in each of the levels. And if you don't trim the roots, they can get stuck, and then water's not going through. But I was unbelievably fascinated at how long the root systems were.
Yeah.
So I would go in and pull them out and trim them, and they would just regenerate. It was great.
I wrongly, obviously, always thought that if you damaged the roots, that it would damage the plant.
Nope. And then we were taught also, like, you could just kind of trim, like, don't pull the lettuces, just trim, and the head will regenerate. It did. It was really cool. So, and we did like a fun salad one day, and a little bit of a testing, taste of lettuce. I had arugula, a couple different, I think, butter lettuces going. But my colleague she laughed. She's like, you are so invested in this. I'm like, well, one, I'm a competitive person. So if you're gonna give me a task, I'm gonna do the best I possibly can. But two, like, this is really cool. This is way better than I thought this was gonna go. So, but I still go back to, I asked for one, and now I have 3.
Yeah.
So I gotta
It's a lot
farm
of
these out a little bit.
responsibility. It's
It
like
is.
you wanted one baby and you got triplets.
Right, right. What are you gonna do? You're not gonna not keep them all, you're gonna take care
Right.
of all of them,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
there you go. But-
Well, interesting you're mentioning lettuces because, so, lettuce is a cool weather vegetable, and even though it is not anything close to cool outside this weekend, it's in the 90s, you did mention that when you first plant the seeds, they need a lot of sun.
Right.
And so it's actually a pretty good time, maybe the first week of August in the Chicagoland area, that if you would like to have some lettuces when the weather cools down, to go ahead and put some seed out now.
Okay. What might you suggest?
Well, anything you like pretty much. Kale would do okay, spinach would do okay, lettuce, arugula you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I love arugula.
I do too.
I plant it every year. My arugula this year, I don't know if it was the variety or if it was just the climate. It didn't do great. It got, the leaves were small.
You said that, you weren't thrilled.
But, so I did let it go to seed,
Mm-hmm.
and I let it dry, and I took those dried pods that it develops, and laid them down on the ground where it had been, and I did that last summer as well, and it will naturally come up again then in the fall if I do that.
Oh, okay.
So, we'll see, and we'll see if it was the climate, because it'll be different climate,
Right.
if it's better, or if
Right.
it's just this variety.
Okay.
I don't really know, but we'll see.
Very cool. I've got this half of patch of garden that's pretty open, so I might try something, but the other plants are kind of in front of it, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you also, do you rotate your crops? So will
I
you
do.
flip what you put in one and put it in the other?
I do.
I've heard that as well.
Do you do
that's a
that?
good thing. Well, I will. You know, like I said, I really would like these, I'd like some raised beds, cause I think it'd be cool, and my kids just love it. They think it's just the coolest thing, and, I have lots of plans, but I was talking to someone about it, like, it's time consuming, and if you keep it watered the right way and weeded and things like that, you know, it is a time consuming thing,
Mhm.
but a lot of people got nothing but time on their hands right now, so.
Right, and so realistically, if you're thinking about doing this, since I've in the past not done it well, and this year I've put more effort into it, it is taking probably, I'd say 2 to 3 hours a week of time
Mhm.
between
Sounds about right.
pulling the weeds, making sure it's watered a couple times if it hasn't rained, feeding the plants a couple times a month. Those are primarily the activities. Obviously, trimming stuff back, pulling stuff that goes bad
Right, right.
are the kind of things that really I've been doing more than I normally have in the past. But it's turning out nicely. Everything looks very nice and healthy, except the cucumbers.
So cucumber, okay. Yeah, and I'm thinking like, oh, tomorrow I gotta do that, but it's gonna be really hot.
It is.
tomorrow.
Get up early.
I'm just kidding, you're right. No, it's true.
Yeah, so anyway, we mentioned lettuces. You could put lettuces in right now. Another cool weather vegetable you could put in right now would be peas.
Oh, yeah, cause they come up in the spring, I could see them coming up in
Yeah.
the fall in the cool weather.
Yeah.
Okay, that might be fun.
Personally, wouldn't do it quite yet, because anyway, we're in Chicago, it's still July, we really kind of get a late summer into September.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna wait another 1 to 2 weeks until we're into August But-
To plant those.
to plant the fall veggies.
Okay.
But I did for the first time this year plant a hard shell squash, which
Mm.
also is harvested in the fall. We'll see what happens with that. It had a lot of blossoms, but no squashes on it yet.
Okay. I was explaining to the kids about the blossoms and what that means, so when you see the flowers and then it turns into the fruit, and they thought that was pretty cool.
It
So
is
that's
cool.
fun to watch, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so hard squash, so how is that squash plant doing? Okay.
It looks great,
Okay, great.
right? Isn't that weird? Because
Right.
it's similar to a cucumber. Squashes and cucumbers are related. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on with the cuke and not the squash. I just don't.
No, I mean, who knows? It's weird, because the same thing happened with one of my plants, so it just could have been, was it too much water right at that perfect time? Who knows?
I don't
But,
know.
yeah, I don't know, it's fun to watch it grow and tend to it, and now I'm getting my kids more involved. And you've also got some flowers kind of mixed in with it as well, and
I did do that, and I'm glad I did that. My daughter was planting a flower garden, and I took her leftover zinnia seeds and I planted them amongst the bare spots in my vegetables, and
Yeah.
they grew tall and they're pretty in there, and now they're blooming
yes,
bright colors.
they do look beautiful. And I did marigolds all the way around the perimeter because mine is not fenced and it's on the ground to keep the bunnies out. And so far so good. I haven't seen any in there, and we have a ton of rabbits in my yard. I see at
Yeah.
least one a day.
I have a family of rabbits living, I don't know, the current dog I have, Dexter, is just, my last dog would not have let a rabbit in our yard, but he is so chill. He's like, oh, what a cute bunny. And he just, so they're living, a whole family of them in the hostas. And,
Are they living in the hostas right next to your house?
yes, and so,
Oh,
and this is fun too, the little ones,
Yeah.
when they got big enough to kind of venture out on their own, it was like Peter Rabbit. I'd see them like one at a time sneaking around the side of the house where I have the raspberries,
Oh.
and climbing under there and
Great.
presumably eating whatever was falling. And so Nate and I were out there picking berries, and I dropped a few, and he said, are you gonna get those? I said, we'll leave them for the bunnies, and he thought that was so fun.
Yeah. I didn't realize because when you were on vacation, I came over and watered, and there was a bunny,
Thank you.
and I was like, oh, it must be just sitting in there, but the family's living in there. Okay.
Mhm.
It's a very hospitable environment that you got over at your house. So.
Yes, all are welcome.
That's nice. Exactly.
That says my dog.
So yeah, I mean, it's like Wild Kingdom.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just kind of coming back to it, people obviously, like we said, finding new hobbies, baking being one of them, which we did not touch on, but gardening being another. And just even to recap, a way to get your kids to try something new is often to do it with them.
Mhm.
So them getting involved, like you said about your patient,
Mhm.
tending to the garden and all of a sudden eating cherry tomatoes again because he was growing them and taking care of them. That's a big thing as well.
Mhm.
That one bite of things is always a good idea. And like watching your kids even my kids at your house, like picking a piece of lettuce and just trying it, or basil or
Mhm.
something like that. I made the most delicious pesto with the basil you gave me last week.
Yeah.
So, but even just talking about like, if you've got neighbors that are all doing this, maybe you think about what you're planning and
Coordinate.
Um,
That's a great idea.
yeah, so you kind of rotate those crops a little bit, but.
Crop share.
Well, and even like, you're seeing more community gardens in places like this, and I mean, we could talk all about why gardening and food insecurities is a real big thing, and bringing gardens and teaching people to garden in underserved communities is something that's become really pretty well known. There's a good TED Talk about that. But it's a good way to get some good nutrition into kids in a way that they feel empowered as well to
For sure.
be able to take care of something. So
For sure. And so again, we're gonna probably be spending more time than usual at home this fall and winter.
right,
Maybe it would be fun to get one of those hydroponic gardens inside your house.
yeah, they're not that expensive. I mean, the ones that we have are pretty big,
Mhm.
but you can actually get home ones, and I've seen that. I've heard people doing that as well. The LED lights are pretty bright, so
Okay.
just know that. But you can put them on a timer, and they can go on overnight. So I think mine go on from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. at school. That's
12 hours.
12 hours. Yeah. So it wasn't so when you're doing the seedlings, they're on a lot longer. But they kicked on at 5 p.m. Maybe longer. Maybe they came off at 7 a.m. or something like that. But
Okay.
yeah, you can certainly do that inside your house.
Well, everybody's getting puppies because they have
Yeah.
time to train and care for them. So
Right.
I'm thinking maybe we already have a puppy. Maybe I'll get my kids a hydroponic garden
There you go.
they can take care of.
Yeah.
Then I can have my fresh herbs all year.
All
That
year
would be
long.
very
It
lovely.
would be lovely. It would be lovely.
That's a good idea.
There you go.
All right. Any other thoughts you have? We didn't talk much about recipes or anything, but we can post. I mean,
Well, on your website, there's
On
going to
my
be
website, there will be.
recipes.
Mhm.
So, and if you are looking for any recipes, you can certainly reach out, and
Yeah.
we can post our favorites that we come across.
yeah, but the thing, which probably I would assume for you as well as for myself, is I often don't use recipes.
not for cooking.
Yeah, so then I end up, I don't mind sharing, but then I'm like, oh, I have to write this down.
Yeah, even the pesto the other day, I'm like, oh, I know what goes in pesto, you know, and I'll
Well, I
just
did
get it
post
into-
my recipe for the pesto I
Oh,
made
did you?
a couple
Oh,
weeks
okay,
ago.
perfect.
Mhm.
Good. Yeah, I did a little of this, little of that, so I got it where I liked it, so.
In my Vitamix. I made another batch this week.
Nice.
I have enough frozen now to last a couple months in the winter.
Very good,
Mhm.
very good.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks so much for tuning in today, and if you are enjoying this podcast, please rate and review us where you get your podcasts, and please follow us on our social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and by all means, check out the new website,
That's right, feedtosucceed.com.
feedtosucceed.com.
All right, well, Jen, thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
been fun as always.
Yeah, have a good day.
You too.